You ever get ghost nuggets? What do you think ghost nuggets would be?
Bland. You gotta dip those in some honey mustard for sure.
Oh, I was thinking when it's like you surprise pooped yourself. You didn't even feel them; they just apparated out of nowhere.
That's when you sit down, right, and you're going, and you're definitely doing things, and you get up and you look, and there's nothing in there.
It's like a phantom limb kind of thing, but it's like a phantom poop.
Yeah, you looked out, and it's like, I know I did something.
You're like, where's it at? I felt it. Did I dream it?
Welcome to Nonsensory Nuggets. Today's episode, we talk Ghost. Ghost of Tsushima sets new sales record. What? What's wrong with what?
We talk Ghost.
We do.
Of ghosts.
No, it's
I know. I'm just messing with you, damn it.
Stop it.
I know.
Ghost sets a new sales record. This is from Austin Wood at Games Radar. If my laptop would work. Thank you. Ghost of Tsushima has sold 2.4 million copies in its first 3 days, making it the fastest selling original game for Sony on PS4 this generation. Stop! The PlayStation Twitter confirmed these sales numbers earlier today. You may remember this is quite a bit less than the likes of The Last of Us 2, which sold 4 million copies in its first weekend. That's where that original qualifier comes into play. The only first-party PS4 games that have sold more than 2.4 million copies within their first 3 days are all sequels or reboots of some kind. Ghost of Tsushima is a brand new IP, which puts it in a class of its own. Rather than The Last of Us 2, it would be competing with the likes of Horizon Zero Dawn, which sold around 2.6 million copies in 2 weeks. In other words, Ghost of Tsushima is doing gangbusters for what it is.
Yeah, I think people like samurais, dude.
Yeah, me too.
And I think that, like me, I think that maybe a lot of people were very cautious about going into it, and then saw that the reviews were good and went and got it. I don't know. Sword fighting samurais from Sony sounds like a really cool thing that should sell a bunch. So am I surprised that this happened? Maybe. I don't know. I definitely wasn't sure that Sucker Punch could make a great game out of this, especially after the reveal. I thought the combat looked super boring, but then I think that just came down to how they showed it, because the reviews that I read said that the combat was great and was one of the best parts of the game. So
I actually saw some very negative reviews.
Yeah,
but overwhelmingly they were good.
Yeah, and most of the negative stuff was it's too easy, or it's you've played an open world game like this before and stuff like that. And like I've said previously, if for me that sounds great, because I haven't played. I've played plenty of open world games. I don't play them so often that I'm another open world game. It's fine. That's why I just bought it today. I'm excited to play it.
Yeah, I am excited to.
So
hopefully
I've added to the 2.4 million.
Yeah, you were part of that. You were part of it?
Well, no, I think that I would be part of it afterwards.
Okay.
So I'm part of the next million.
Yeah, well, that's good. But in any case, I'm very much looking forward to playing this game. I'm really happy they're doing well. Good job, Sucker Punch. I don't know. Is open world overdone? I don't have any problem. Anytime. Yeah, I did that. Anytime there's a game that is linear, everyone goes, "Oh, you don't. It's linear." And then anytime that they finally make a game that's open world, they're like, "Oh, it's open world." What do you want? What do you want?
The diversity of impressions was so good there. It's open world.
But it's true.
I know.
It's what they do every time.
Yeah, it's what do you want?
Yeah, it's either going to be open world or it's going to be linear.
Reinvent the wheel every time, or your game is bad. I don't know.
I like my games either way. I just want it to be good at what it does.
Yeah.
That's why I actually love Final Fantasy 13. Were there bits of it that were like, okay, so it has the typical Final Fantasy stuff where it's like cringy story where you're like, ugh, more of this Japanime stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that any other JRPG just gets away with. The cheesy ridiculousness.
No, maybe for most people.
Yeah. But like Final Fantasy 13, it's it's all linear. You can't do what you want. So the story, like, it plays awesome.
Yeah, people like Final Fantasy X, and it was very linear too. Like, it's not like the games that in the series before that were just as like. I think that game suffered from people expecting like some big open world thing, and it was just like, why?
The thing about it is Final Fantasy VII is basically identical in how it worked, in that the first large chunk of the game is very linear, and then all of a sudden it opens up. But it takes a long time for that to happen. It's exactly the same in 13. 13's linear for the first long bit of time, and then it opens up and it's open world. And one of them is like, "Oh, this is amazing! It's great!" And the other is, "Well, it's so linear, it's stupid." They do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm always somebody that's like, if a team wants to make a game linear, I don't see how it could possibly be a bad thing. But if a team wants to make an open world game, I can see how it can become a bad thing very easily, because like, with an open world game, you're talking about like, we have to make a big like there's a set of requirements that are required of you to make an open world game, right? You need like a big map, you need tons of interesting stuff to do on the side to pad out all this content that you're going to have and stuff like that. And so like, you need to make that content super interesting, and if you don't, then then nobody wants to slog through your 50 hours worth of game or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's ever been a time where they were like, this game's too big, let's make it smaller, and then it's turned out worse. I don't know. I mean,
that's a
what
pretty bold claim.
What you're talking about with like FF13 might be like, what the opposite of that, where like, people expected bigger and they got more linear and smaller. So maybe I'm wrong there, but
I mean, 15 was super open, and I hated every second of it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think like that's the thing, is like, games that are big like that need to justify their length, versus something that's like 8 or 12 hours. It's like, okay, it becomes like much more easy to get through something that's like 8 or 10 hours versus something that's like 40 hours.
Once you start getting shorter, then you have to justify your length in the opposite direction. It's
right.
Like, you are paying so much for something that is so short because it's quality. So it's like, on one hand, it's like you can get away with making something that's huge and not as good quality because look at how much game you're getting.
Right.
And it's like, I'd rather have something shorter and better, personally.
Yeah.
But if you can give me bigger and better at the same time, I mean, that's even better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. Open world games that kind of have a bad rap right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because we've played so many of them.
Yeah.
There's been so many of them this gen.
I think it's mainly that, like, for a large part of video game history, you only had linear style games. Everything was, a platform or just completely linear story to go through. And now it's like you have these open world experiences. You can go anywhere, do anything, and it's like when it was novel. It was like, oh man, look at this! I can go anywhere. And I was like, I can go anywhere, but why?
Like, whenever games came out, they were like either very linear or competition based, right? It was like you versus another person, you versus the AI, or they were a story and they were linear. You know, that's just how they were because of the technology, right? You couldn't make these big open worlds. But now we have, and we have had open world games since like GTA 3. You know, not everybody's making them though, is the thing. Like, you know, they've slowly gained in the amount of them that there are throughout the year. But as a concept, they've existed for a long time. And I just think that, you know, the pendulum's kind of swinging the other way, where people saw the potential of the open world games and stuff like that. And like, I think that potential gets met in a lot of cases, but when it doesn't, it becomes like, if you reach the end of a game and you feel like you've wasted 50 hours, that's like a sin, you know. For as much as people like to look at game length as like a justifying factor for their money, it's also like whenever those things don't work out and you spent all that money, you spent $60 on a game and then spent so much freaking time in it, just to find out that afterwards you like really actually hated the game, you know?
Right.
Then you feel kind of cheated out of not just your time, not just your money, but your time, you know?
I think one of the things that's coming into a bit of popularity, and I think rightly so, I mean, it's getting to be more and more of a thing, is the interactive visual novel style game. I think I'm someone who likes a good story. And, like, that's my main draw when I play any game. I mean, yes, there are the games that I like because it's a fun, bouncy ball. But when I really like games where the narrative is something I can just sink my teeth into. So I like that they're going in this direction now. You're seeing more of these, which is why, what was the one, the Dusk or whatever that we covered in our Xbox game.
Yeah, at something Dark at Dusk or whatever it was called.
Which one was the one that looked good and the one that looked really not great? In any case, like, I'm intrigued by it because I do like an experience like that. I'm very interested. Like, I liked Heavy Rain.
Yeah,
and I mean that's very much what that was. I know that's not something for everybody, but I feel like maybe that will end up being the same thing, where it's like people will eventually be like, well, right now, while it's like this new idea, it's, oh yeah, cool, look, I can interact with my story, and it's just this big, I don't know, if it's a quality story, it'll always be engaging. So maybe, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
So they talk about when big open world games first came out, the cool thing about GTA wasn't just that it was big, it was that it was a sandbox to do fun stuff in, right? And a lot of games that are open world now lose sight of that, where it's like you do stuff in it that is fun. You know, it's not just like travel from quest marker to quest marker and do nothing in between. Like, the cool part about GTA was like hitting all the hidden jumps, or just like, you know, going around and just mowing stuff down and just like seeing what you could do in your car and stuff. Like, it gives you stuff to do that's like fun in between. Like, driving a car and just like shooting stuff around it in GTA is just fun. But a lot of games like you know, like the Assassin's Creed games, like, what do you do in the moment to moment gameplay between going to missions and stuff? Like, is that fun? Is running to the next thing fun? Is riding your horse fun? Like, usually not, you know. Like, I wasn't like in The Last of Us 2, like, it's not an open world game, but it had like open worldy elements, and it was cool to explore those areas, but I wouldn't say that like riding my horse to the next part was like fun, you know.
Yeah.
It was immersive or whatever. So like, I think that it's cool that a lot of games are like embracing this like not quite open world thing, where like it's a smaller open world for open world games, where they give you more to do, this more content dense, so it doesn't feel so spread out. And they're really focusing on like the playground aspect. Like Metro Exodus did that really well, where like they gave you a map that was technically a level, but it was also a lot bigger than just a regular level, but much smaller than an open world. And you just kind of explored that map, and there were like 5 or 6 or 7 interesting things that you could do on that map, and then you did that, and then it was over, and then you moved on to the next thing and stuff like that, instead of trying to cram your entire game, you know, into one giant map and stuff like that. So I think we've kind of you know,
In any case, Ghost of Tsushima, congratulations on the record.
heck yeah.
Even if it did have to have a qualifier, it's still very impressive.
I think that it's more impressive.
I agree, because it doesn't have anything to fall back on.
Exactly. You're not familiar with it. I mean, okay, it is derived from things that people are familiar with, like samurai cinema and stuff like that.
But even still, it's an unknown, and Sucker Punch totally destroyed it. In the good way. I mean, like, just like Sucker Punch destroys. Not
Wrecked
like,
it.
Not like, oh man, you destroyed it.
Completely ruined those sales figures.
You guys did a good job. Congratulations, Sucker Punch. Congratulations, Ghost. And with that,
Peace. I'll let you know how the game is.
thanks for listening to another Nonsensory clip. You can check us out in audio form by finding us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. If you'd rather see us floundering around, subscribe to us on YouTube or come check out our regular Tuesday stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/nonsensory at 7:30 Eastern Time. On social media, we tweet at Nonsensory1, and you can find us on Facebook at Nonsensory Podcast. You can also support us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/nonsensorypod.